Okay, so I call the special meeting for September 11th, 2022 Wetland Commission to order. Let's start with introduction. Airport Commission. Do we have anyone on?
We do, we have Laura.
Laura?
Yes. Can you
Just
hear
like-
me?
Yep, you want to introduce yourself?
Laura Ferguson, Commissioner.
Okay,
Greg Johnston, Vice Chair.
Danielle Monroe, alternate.
Dave McCollum, and the Wetlands Agent.
Mary Churchill, Recording Secretary.
okay, thank you. So first thing on the agenda, and I believe the only thing on the agenda, is Rockwell Road. Would you like to update us?
7 Rockwell Road, that is
7
correct,
Rockwell Road.
Mr. Chairman. This was last on your meeting agenda for your meeting in August. I had advised that I would be issuing a notice of violation to the property owner for 7 Rockwell Road, Mr. Mark Bjorken, who is not in attendance at the moment, and it remains to be seen as to whether or not he will attend. But either way, I had issued an order to correct to both his residential address at 7 Rockwell Road and the address for which the field card assigns to 49 High Rock Road in Newtown, Connecticut. Like I said, that order to correct was issued September 6th, and I requested him to come to tonight's special meeting, essentially to conduct what's called a show cause hearing. I don't know if you guys had a chance to read the order to correct letter, but what it essentially entails is there were conditions that were noted in the notice of violation that I issued, specifically the non-permitted displacement of rocks and other materials from a water course. In this case, I believe it's Lime Kiln Brook, and the placement of fill material within a 100-foot regulated upland review area and a regulated wetlands area, which again also stemmed from Lime Kiln Brook. I cited the specific sections of the wetlands regulations for which he is violating.
Okay.
I had met with him, I believe it was August 22nd, where he had made an unscheduled visit into the building to speak with me, and he had advised me what he was doing out there and what his plans were to improve the property for where he had done the work thus far. I'm going to bring up on the screen right now and try to describe to you what exactly that all entails. So hopefully it's going to be coming up here in a second. Just for context, I'll go through the original complaint photos that were submitted by the complainants. Brian Blanchett, who is here in the audience off screen this evening. So these are really small, but they try the intent is that they show the area for where work has taken place. So this is the complainant's property here. This bank on if you can faintly see my cursor here, the property in question is off here to the left, and this is Lime Kiln Brook. Its direction of flow is away from the shop that is flowing northward. These are just some other photographs that he took kind of as a time lapse for the activities that are taking place out there. I'm trying to find some pertinent ones. So this is Lime Kiln Brook itself, again flowing from south to north, left to right in the case of this photograph. This shows the rough area where rocks have been placed to act as piers for a bridge, which has since been installed, and you'll see it in subsequent photographs. There were rocks that were removed from upstream portions of Lime Kiln Brook to be placed here to create those piers. There's some additional fill material that was placed to support these piers, which will be shown But this kind of gives you an idea for how long ago this work started. And it seems pretty innocent back then, or innocuous back then, because the only way you really would have known it was going on back there is if either you were on the extreme rear, the extreme east of Mark's property, or we're overlooking this from Brian's. Here are some additional photographs, kind of showing the same view. South is in the background, north is in the foreground. More photos of the subject property. These are photographs. This is a photograph, I believe, of Mr. Bjorken out there conducting the work himself. I think this is him in that image. I could be mistaken. Maybe it's an image of something else. Yeah, that could just be a rock. But either way, it's just showing the continued improvements out there. This is in the subsequent spring of that year. I know I'm going through these fast. I'm just trying to think of the pertinent photo.
One
Yeah,
side of the bank is one property and the other side of the bank is another property.
that's correct.
It divides, okay,
That's correct. The water course effectively bifurcates the parcels.
thank you.
You're welcome. So this is again the subject property. This is a structure on that property. So Mr. Bjorken's property is over here. Mr. Blanchett's property is over here. More photographs again. Yeah. Okay. Here in the background, you can see the bridge in a later stage of construction. At this point, it has a bona fide deck and girders across on those two piers that I showed before. So there's been additional work that's taken place since, again, without my knowledge or without any sort of approvals for him to do this work.
Is that more recent? Because I think the pictures we saw prior didn't have the decking.
Yeah, so
No, it was, can I just say it real quick or
I would
no? Okay,
I
I'm
would
sorry.
prefer you not. No,
Yeah,
thank
we'll
you.
wait.
No, it's fine.
So these photographs, I believe they were taken. They're more recent photos.
Okay.
In other words, the photos that were shown in the winter were likely from the year before.
But it was prior to the cease and desist.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Okay, these
It's
are
a
just
little
more
hard to
photos
see in
of.
the photos, but it
Yeah.
looks like
Yeah.
there's an enormous number of rocks there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna skip ahead. Most of these photos are, they have a really small resolution, so I'm just gonna go. To when I went out to the property myself, I received a complaint from Mr. Blanchett. Dated August 1st, 2023. His complaint alleges that Mr. Bjorken was moving up to the waterway and he was altering the flow of the water course. So I went out there on August 7th, and I think these photographs are a little bit better. These photographs were taken from the complainant's property. Mr. Bjorken's property is over here. This is Lime Kiln Brook again, flowing from south to north away from the camera. This is the bridge work in progress. It's hard to tell how much work has been done because the river is at a high rate of flow here. So the piers don't really stick out from this flow as much, but you'll see in subsequent photos just how much work was done that is submerged in this shot. There are some additional photos that show the additional placement of rocks to reinforce this bank here. When I had spoken to Mr. Bjorken, he said that his placement of these rocks were to prevent that bank from eroding, which is interesting because he's on the inner side of the water course, and water, when it erodes, it works outwards. So it would be good, the portion of the property that would be eroding would be Mr. Blanchett's, not so much Mr. Bjorken's. But of course, I would defer to an expert if they have a different opinion, but that's just if you're essentially talking erosion 101, that's how water courses work. They take material away from the outside and it gets displaced to the inside. It's hard for me to understand or to grasp what Mr. Bjorken's intents really are. But anyway,
But are all those rocks native to the property? Cause that's a lot of rocks.
yeah, so the complaint alleges that some of those rocks were taken from the channel of Limekiln Brook itself, which Mr. Bjorken confirmed that he did take some of those rocks out and relocate them to the banks of the stream itself. It's hard to say what percentage came from which side of the water course or where specifically. I mean, unless the stream itself was bone dry and I was out there the day that he did it, it really would be hard to say where and when the rocks were taken. But either way, photographs like this are pretty damning, for lack of a better word, in that, you know, there's nothing else on this bank to suggest that there were rocks like this that were placed naturally. He likely had placed these and deliberately configured them to be in this pattern like this, or in this configuration like this. So of course, if Mr. Bjorken was here, he could substantiate that. But again, another photograph. So I went out there and spoke, and or well, rather, he came here and spoke to me, and I had advised him, hey, I don't want to say that you can't keep what you've done, but you need to get an approval for it, because I would consider what you've done to be a regulated activity. Which, you know, it's the regulations describe, you know, anything that you do within a 100-foot upland review area and or a water course. In this case, he's filling and taking material away in the form of rock and the soil material. So I had given him a period of 14 days, 14 calendar days from when he met me on August 22nd. Apparently, the day after I had met with him, I received a phone call from Mr. Blanchett that Mr. Bjorken was out there continuing the work. So I went out there to conduct another site visit. These are photographs that are now taken from Mr. Bjorken's property. Just as a point of clarification, the water course does bifurcate Mr. Bjorken's and Mr. Blanchett's lot, but only to a certain point. Where we're looking at now, Mr. Bjorken also owns both sides of the banks for Limekiln Brook. So in this case, he had done stonework on the side of the water course where Mr. Blanchett's property is also located.
So the bridge is totally on his property.
The bridge is totally on Mr.
He created a piece of, he didn't have property until he, sorry.
So this photograph is taken from the deck of that bridge, or that crossing, whatever you want to call it. And it shows more rock work that was done to, again, reinforce this bank. Again, without approvals or the appropriate authorizations for him to do so. This is a shot looking upstream. You can see the change, how much slower the rate of flow is for Limekiln Brook, so it's easier to see what the conditions for either side of the banks for Limekiln Brook are. So that's why I took this photograph just as a point of reference. I'm trying to get this next one to show up here.
Dave, how much property is on the other side?
I don't know off the top of my head what that acreage is. At this point, it really doesn't matter, because I'm acting under the assumption that Mr. Bjorken is taking work entirely on his property.
Right.
I would request, as part of whatever applications he may be required to submit, that he show where the work is taking place, either on a survey or a plot plan or something to that effect. So that way you could have an expert speak to the specific areas of Limekiln Brook relating to Mr. Bjorken's property and the affected property, Mr.
I think
Blanchett.
what I'm asking is, and I may be getting ahead of myself,
Yeah,
did he make the river in that point, let's say it's 6 feet now, was it 12 feet before? Did he
Yeah,
That's
it appears to have been channelized.
That's what I'm wondering. Okay.
Especially in the area for the bridge itself. The piers do extend some ways from
Thanks.
from where the natural embankment would be into the water course itself. It appears for other sections, he's merely just reinforced the bank with rocks. But either way, he is still channelizing the water because
Right.
he's altering what would otherwise be the natural process of erosion
Right.
for that section of the brook.
Mhm.
That last photo you had up looked like those are not natural rocks, that they're
Right.
building materials that have been
Correct.
brought in.
Correct, yeah, he, in that photograph, he has substantiated that he was doing all of this work by hand. That he was essentially taking buckets of clay and compacting them and alternating layers of material to essentially reinforce that bank. Part of his explanation was that there are trees whose roots extend out from the embankment, and he is concerned that if the water course erodes away too much, that the trees root systems will fail, causing the trees to fall over.
So it sounds like he's forthcoming by saying he's doing the work and not hiding it.
Well, it's, I mean,
What's the issue at this point?
well, the
That's
issue
stuff.
is, the issue is that he's doing this work without approval.
No, I
So-
know, I understand that part.
The whole process is he needs to, he needs to come before us because we're gonna wanna, we would want a study done.
No,
To show the effects of what he's doing.
and I understand that, and you've
And have
told
it
him
proven
that,
by an engineer
right, and
that it
Dave's
isn't
told him that,
detrimental to.
right,
the
so
rest.
Dave's told him that, so why the special meeting tonight, that's what I'm getting to, is
It's-
he not complying to that?
Right, so I had given him a period of 14 days to at least indicate that he was making some headway
Okay,
to get an application to you guys.
okay,
That period lapsed on September 5th.
okay,
And so on September 6th, as a prompt to keep things moving
okay,
and for you guys to submit an application, I issued an order to correct. Which
Okay.
effectively gave him two options. The first of which is you're allowed to keep the conditions as they are, provided you get an application that's, before the commission that gets, an approval by, well, let me read you what I wrote instead of trying to say
okay,
it.
please.
And I quote, pursuant to the authority vested in me by the Bethel Inland Wetlands Commission, the Bethel Inland Wetlands Regulations, you are hereby ordered and directed to correct all unpermitted conditions on or before October 31st, 2023, by means of the following. Either, and I gave him two options, the first of which was restoration of the on-site water course and the stream banks to their existing conditions as of November 4th, 2015, which to my understanding is the date that he bought the property, or acquisitions of the appropriate approvals for the regulated activities on or before October 1st, 2023.
Okay.
So I've effectively given him a window of 2 months
Right.
for him to get an application in, have you guys review it, and for you guys to render a decision on it.
Okay,
This order, just because I have this language in here, doesn't mean it's set in stone. You guys can either choose to uphold my order as I wrote it, have it be revised to say something else, or withdraw it. And
Which is a
and
reason for
effectively
meeting.
say that I was incorrect in issuing this order, and, excuse me,
Yep.
and that, Mr. Bjorken can either pursue a permit on a different timeline, or he doesn't need one at all. But that's your decision to make. If Mr. Bjorken was here, he would be able to state his case and show cause as to what he's done so far and why this order should not remain in effect.
is he full knowledgeable of the meeting tonight?
Yeah, the letter,
That's one on the.
there's a follow-up in the letter that says that there's a special meeting that was going to be held
Okay.
on September 11th, 2023, and our agenda was posted. And it states the time and the location for this meeting. So,
Did that letter get mailed out to both properties that he?
yeah, it was mailed to 49 High Rock Road in Newtown, Connecticut, and to 7 Rockwell Road in Massachusetts.
Certified?
certified and regular mail return receipt.
Just want on the record, that's all.
Yep, no, I totally got it,
Yep.
and that's why, I included it as part of the, record
Okay.
documents for tonight's meeting. You guys hear that there's a notice of violation and an order to correct in the file.
Okay. All right, I very rarely come across these. I think there's only two. Do we have public input at all in this? Or?
No.
Okay, just making sure.
Unless Mr. Blanchett is here to speak on behalf of Mr. Bjorken, which I don't think is the case.
I'm not.
Okay.
Right.
I'm aware
All
of,
right,
Right, so,
but I'm over here though, because my property is getting,
understood. All right, so basically you've given him a timeline to respond. He's aware of the timeline.
right,
And you just basically need our approval to what you set forth.
well, so you can either affirm
Right,
that what I have written stays in effect. You want to revise the order, or you want to have the order be withdrawn.
so Dave, can you give me the dates again, when he has to get back to you with some type of information?
So the order, directs him to correct all the unpermitted conditions on or before October 31st, 2023.
2 months. basically.
So that would, so the commission still has its regular meeting. For September, which is coming up in 2 weeks. And then your next regular meeting would be on October 23rd.
And by correcting it, either putting it back the way it was, or having a plan in the works or approved by the commission.
Well, so that's it, I guess you could say it is unclear in that sense.
Right.
The order does specify acquisition of the appropriate approvals for regulated activities on or before October 31st, 2023.
So the only concern I have with that, I agree with the date, it's just the only concern I have with that is unforeseen circumstances beyond the control of. And Ms. Bjorken, is it?
Right,
You know, being the engineer needs some study, needs this or needs that, some that we can. If he's working to obtain that and we approve it to move that date. But it has to be, you understand what I'm saying? I want to,
Submitted anything.
right, he hasn't submitted anything,
right.
but I just want to make sure, let's say he comes in, because he has been. Forthcoming saying, yeah, I'm doing this because of this, all of a sudden he stopped seeming to work with you, sounds like he's continued doing work, so. I think there's two parts here. Pulling that part, like what happens if he continues to do the work without any permit?
That's my concern, is he's already ignored.
Right.
To tell him this stuff. So it's quite obvious that. He's gonna keep
Right.
ignoring. And continue to do work.
And he isn't here.
So
tonight to
can
present
we,
his case.
I know in the building world, I mean, is a little different, we do a cease and desist, and if you don't follow it, they come and arrest you.
Right, so,
So do we have that power with this?
right, the burden of, you could do what's called file an injunction. And that would be with the Danbury Superior Court. And you would effectively have to prove that there's an endangerment to public health, safety and welfare. With what Mr. Bjorken is doing. Even though there are concerns about flooding on Mr. Blanchett's property. I want to give the benefit of the doubt that we would not need to go that far unless you guys think otherwise. The next best thing that could be done is for me to have this order revised to effectively say you must stop all work.
Yeah.
And any work that is conducted in the interim between you holding this meeting.
Right.
And you appropriate approval. Is a violation that would prompt me to go forth with the injunction.
I just want to make sure that you have the authority you need to make sure he's not doing any more work.
I think there needs to be some sort of threat of legal action to make him stop. Because just
Sure.
saying stop hasn't worked.
Sure.
Fine, or, I don't know.
we do not have a citation ordinance process in place. We've gone through this issue with zoning enforcement, and in this case, it's gonna be for wetlands enforcement too. If we could levy monetary fines, I would have made mention of that in the notice
Okay.
of violation I issued.
Right.
And I imagine that would have gotten his attention a bit better.
So what do you need from us? Have the authority to make sure he no longer does any work until.
Well, it sounds like you're erring towards having this order be revised, to say. Mr. Bjork, and you or any other persons cannot conduct any more
Okay.
work on your property. Until such appropriate approvals
Okay.
are acquired from you, the Inland Wetlands Commission.
And that will give you the authority you need to make sure he's no longer doing.
And can you
Well,
add-
it
can you
act
just,
add in that, you know, failure to do so,
yeah,
puts you at risk of further or legal.
right.
Yeah.
It's not so much me having the authority, it's me executing your order.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have. So that would work then.
Right,
Okay, all right. So the second part of that, so that gives, like, stop doing the work. Gives the authority to stop doing the work and the legal means behind that. Again, the only concern I have is putting that set date. I would like to have it. I agree with the set date, but I wanna make sure that he's working with. We're not putting a roadblock in there saying, okay, if you need this information. If we agree to it, you can move it forward, but right now it is a set date.
well,
So I'm
so,
not an engineer, I don't know, he
Well-
may come in and be like, we need.
I would say in this case.
We have
The commission wouldn't be looking for
Okay,
documentation from a professional engineer as much as they would be a soil scientist or a wetland scientist. I
Right.
mean, there aren't any structures that are being
right,
placed or improved upon.
Just a structure.
I'm just using.
Right.
Pilings are.
I'm just using engineer as a thing, but to Danielle's point. As long as it's in there that he has to present the plan or something by that date or in process to repair it. By that, you know what I'm saying? I don't wanna.
So-
From that date though, and all of a sudden it drags out 2 years.
So you want so do you want the deadline for him to submit an application to be October 31st?
Was he already given a deadline for when to submit the application?
Well.
And the deadline is shown.
Yeah, he was given a deadline to either submit an application or indicate to me that he was in the process of getting the soil scientist and getting his acts together to submit something.
All right, so in good faith, if we were to, if the committee wanted to give him a short extension to provide that, or else this is our next course of action, is that something that could happen?
That's entirely within reason.
But the work stoppage should be.
But yes, but the
Right.
work
Right.
stoppage is
That's,
non-negotiable.
that's,
Right.
I would take
Worded
that
that way.
understanding, yeah.
Yep.
It would be an immediate cessation of work.
Right.
But if you are amenable to giving him more time to submit an application or for the review process to take place.
I don't know, but I do think that,
Well, because who's to say, he gets an application in September. You guys accept it, the hearing starts in October, but for some reason, there's something that comes up that says, hey, we don't have enough information to come.
That's what I'm worried about, and now he's in violation of the
Right.
date.
Right,
So I would say he has to have an application submitted, how's that? The application submitted by the October meeting.
so that would be October 30th. Or
I'm just
October
thinking
12th, that would be
September is
October
pretty
23rd.
tight to
Correct.
work with. And by people, I mean engineers, or them.
is it reasonable to ask him to provide us with a plan of remediation to put things back the way that they were?
Right, so that's why he has two options, right? He can either choose to pursue the improvements he's made or revert the
Via
property.
submitting an application
Correct.
for review.
Or revert the property to the way it was.
So we want to see a plan for that as well.
I would just like to see him respond to this.
Okay.
So that we know where we're going.
Okay,
And
I personally would
yeah,
like
no, I
to.
agree, and if he's going to put it back the way it was, I still would like to see a plan before he does so. So we have a full understanding exactly what he feels was before and after,
right, so at our next regular meeting, 2 weeks from now.
yes.
I imagine I would have some kind of an update for you as to
Okay.
what Mr. Bjork's intentions are. Whether or not he
Okay.
wants to go forth with trying to keep what he's done. Or revert things to the way they were. I would say you wouldn't need an application for the latter. Just because you're taking improvements away.
Still wanna see it.
It's still planned.
Right, so,
What do we do this? By the next meeting in September, he needs to be able to present to us one of those two options that he's electing to do.
okay,
And then by the October October meeting, he needs to submit either an application to continue to work or a remediation plan to put it back to.
Why do you wanna
Pre-existing.
push that deadline out to October rather than make that the 2 weeks?
Cause I have
next?
with engineers before, and 2 weeks is not, I don't wanna set at the same time fail, like, you know. He can't get it in 2 weeks, what happens then? Is he in trouble because he got a hold of the engineer yesterday and the
Okay.
engineer can't get out there for a week?
I thought that was what the last 2 weeks were for, though.
And
for him to
then
come here.
there's, the whole thing there. You know,
right, so the last.
but by holding him to this meeting, he's coming and saying, all right, these are my plans. Okay, what I'm planning on doing. And then he has basically 30 days to say, okay. You gotta come back to us, show us your plans then for to approve it and the timeline on when you're gonna correct this, or. There'll be consequences.
Right,
I think we need to probably figure out what those are, yeah,
I don't know what those consequences are.
but I think it should be a part of whatever's presented to him as the outcome of this meeting.
I don't know what the consequences can be. Can we have a contractor go in there and on his property? That gets into a whole.
No, but we could, I think Dave was saying we can submit it to Danbury Superior Court
for an
for
injunction.
an injunction.
Okay, and that's fine. I'm good with that.
And perhaps we would want to say that if the work does not cease, that would also,
Oh,
Those
immediately,
Right,
immediately.
right.
The-
I don't
That
think,
has to cease.
at this point, I mean, it's been ignored
yes,
for
it has,
2
right,
weeks
but
already.
there has to be a consequence if it continues.
Well, I-
If there's no consequence presented to them,
Right.
that's actually gonna make a difference to him.
Right,
Right.
He's just gonna do the work
And it has
on
to
it
be,
and eventually just, go, oh, well, it's already done.
and I wouldn't wanna see damage happen to the other property holders' property as a result of us kicking it down the road.
Right. is there any risk of damage to the other property beyond what's already been done?
I have had flooding situations described to me by Mr. Blanchett where water has come up into the rear yard of his property under heavy rain events.
Okay.
It's hard to say what the likelihood for that happening in the not too distant future is.
Okay.
It is possible because all of the sections for where work has taken place are within a floodway.
Okay,
So
but
that's a
Right,
red
so-
flag right there, that flooding concerns are possible.
And we don't know
So-
whether those flooding conditions had
Right.
occurred prior to this work,
Oh, no, they had,
so
but we don't know whether this has increased the likelihood of that.
that's correct.
So basically, right now, it's cease all work activity.
Right.
And I say all work activity, because he may be like, oh, I'm putting it back the way it was, no, you have to cease all work activity.
Right.
Within 2 weeks, what your course of action will be by the October meeting. Either submit a application or plan a resolution. Now I got a fourth thing. Has there been any work done or negative effect to any of the adjacent property owners?
Run that,
So
Have
Well,
we
that
done
your
any work on
property
any of
comes,
the
has he
adjacent
taken
properties?
anything?
to my knowledge,
from
no,
the
but
bank
the only way to
or
really
property?
confirm the extent of the work
He took all the rocks.
is for it to be on a survey.
Okay.
And
I just wanna make clear, I gotta make believe he's not here, correct? I can't
I can't, if I could talk for 1 minute, I'll be.
I just
quick.
wanna make sure-
I mean, I'm not saying I could explain it better than you, but
I
I could
just-
give them a quick.
I just wanna make sure if this gets into a legal thing, it's
Alright.
not.
If you want to let Mr. Blanchett speak, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman,
as long as I can legally, I'd be happy
Sure.
to tell you.
Hi, so
Hi,
I'm Brian
can you
Blanchett.
Give me the overview of what you're seeing
Okay.
there and any effect on your
So-
property.
And
What
your
I-
address, please?
4 Old Hollyville Road.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I've been seeing is, this has been going on for a long time. I've asked numerous times for it to stop.
Okay,
This is basically a last resort for me.
okay,
He's taking rocks out of the river and putting them on his side of the bank. Bringing new rocks in.
Okay.
After David asked him to stop, he was gonna call me to inform me that he spoke to Mr. Majorcan.
Okay.
And that morning, so on Friday afternoon, when the town hall was closed, I showed up and he had bags of clay. Like truckloads of like pallets of bags
Okay.
of clay that he was bringing. He built a bridge to go from one side of the river to the other.
right,
So he found out that he owned a small little sliver on the other side of the river from his
Okay.
home. Which basically is useless, and now what he's doing is he's stacking up rocks. So that he can, there's nowhere to go though, it's just like basically a bridge to nowhere, and it's creating a bottleneck. So what he did was he built the bank out, his whole entire side of his bank out, he built it out at least like 5 or 6 feet. Which in
Into the
turn,
water course?
yes, which
from
in
your
turn,
side of the river.
so he took the rocks from the center of the river
Right.
and he put them on his side of the river.
Okay,
Okay, so it made the river go down like this,
Okay.
and then it also made his bank of the river come out. His
Okay.
home is close to the river.
okay,
And it was that way when he bought it, right?
Right.
It's been like that forever. So when I asked him to stop, he told me, I don't live there. I wasn't around, but I've owned the property since '09, so I'm
Okay.
familiar. So he's trying to explain to me how it is, and that's not how it
Okay.
is. But basically, what he did was, he put a bunch of rocks on his side of the river, which pushed the river towards my side. And now he's trying to prevent the small little sliver that he owns on that side from being eroded. But
Because
he
it's
doesn't,
pushed.
he's not worried about my side. So he's
Okay.
creating a bottleneck and changing the flow of the
Okay.
water. And it's not,
has any of your bank eroded at this point?
it has, but probably, stuff happens, it occurs naturally, I understand, but I feel like it's happening faster now.
Okay, and I know you're not an expert about how much of the bank has eroded since this work has been done, would you say?
I'm over the course of the time, I would say at least 3 or 4 feet.
Okay.
I have a property pin,
Okay,
which is at the north end of my property. That used to be 6 to 7 feet off the bank. It's now basically on the bank of the river.
Okay. Alright.
It's, if you guys, I mean, if you saw it in person, it's very obvious what's going on.
Alright.
But he told me what he was gonna do. I told him not to do it. His yard's a mess. I don't have a problem with anything he's doing. I told him the whole time, just please don't touch the river. That's all I'm asking.
because
And
it
he
affects your
just
property.
Keeps
Yeah.
giving me a reason why he's doing it.
Okay.
Okay, whatever that may be. And then he won't stop.
Okay.
And then he offered to buy my property. He told me I wouldn't have to worry about it, told me not to turn him in.
Okay.
And all I want is just for him to just leave it
Okay.
alone. So that's, that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So. What I would like, either to read, and the commission can say no, whatever, but. As part of the remediation plan or the plan to continue to work. It's to restore any damage that this work has already done. Which seems minor, but. That should be part of it.
Okay.
If that's allowable and if the commission is the thing.
So you're saying that you would like, if he goes the restoration route, to put the rocks back in and re-divert the river back to the original.
I think he
banks?
does a restoration plan, we still need him to have an engineer or something, because we can't just take the rocks and.
Yeah,
But he also. He needs to somehow. Fix the bank as well. I
we just
understand,
need to get a town engineer out there to look at it and
I
an
think-
expert out there on our behalf.
I think either way, he needs to get some type of his own. engineer
Right,
involved
so
in either plan he decides.
what he's done out there, if he were to go through the standard process and
Yes.
procedure, he would have a plan
Yes.
that was substantiated by an expert. In this case, if you guys would recommend that he have a project engineer for the bridge, then you could request that. At the very least, he would have a wetland scientist
Okay.
that would explain, you know, the regulated series as a whole.
Yep.
And any potential adverse impacts to the water course. And if there were adverse impacts, how they would be mitigated by the work that Mr. Bjorken's doing.
Okay.
You could also have that soil scientist speak to the erosive potential of the water on either side of the water course. It perhaps would be of more interest to Mr. Blanchett's property, because like I mentioned at the beginning of
Yep.
this, water goes to the outer bank, not the inner bank. And if there's other information that you guys would want, if you would want this application to be peer reviewed, make that request when you guys accept the application. Who's to say how embellished or substantive the materials you get will be when the
That's to be
application
evaluated
gets,
at the
right,
time that it arrives.
so. I'm hopeful that it's gonna have everything you need. But as we've seen this evening, time will tell.
Okay.
And Mr. Bjorken's not showing up tonight is somewhat telling. It's unfortunate.
I don't wanna assume, okay?
Okay,
I mean, you've given him time though to do, you know, more than enough time already, and he's continuing to do work. What did he say when you went out there and he was working? Still,
he was saying that the work was meant to protect what he had done so far.
Yeah. okay. So it has to be clear, no work is to be done
Okay,
at all unless going through you first and there's deemed to be a hazardous condition that the work has to be done for.
okay,
Okay, but it has to be approved by you. You know, I'm not out there, I don't know if we get 20 inches of rain an hour, you know, that sort of stuff. But because at the same time, I don't want him saying, oh, I'm making it better, so I'm still working on it. You know, no, anything, it has to be done by you, has to be approved by you. If there's a hazardous condition, you would have to approve the work, but at this time, all work should cease and desist.
okay, so
There's gonna be a lot of.
an immediate cessation of work.
Yep,
An update to be provided at the next regular meeting as to whether or not he wants to revert the conditions to how they existed when he acquired the property.
yes,
Or to substantiate what he's done so far and any work that he wants to do. So it's either or.
yep,
And then he has to have that application submitted for either option.
Yep.
By the commission's regular meeting on October 23rd.
yep. And I would add, which, I would like to know which soil scientist he's working with at the next meeting.
Okay,
Either way, he's gonna need one, and he has 2 weeks at least to hire someone, that's,
So do you
Yep.
want to require the soil scientist for remediation work as well?
yes, both.
Oh, yeah.
okay,
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I know, you know, I'm on the wetland board, if I did something like this, I have an idea. But I'm not a soil scientist, and
Okay.
this gentleman, I mean, he may be an expert, I don't know, he's not here, so at this point, I want a soil scientist for either,
very good,
you know? Yes,
understood.
And then do you want to add in the consequences for failure?
Oh, that's just gonna be standard.
yes,
That would just be standard.
yes,
Well,
I like
now
the
that
way
now
you
that
wrote
you've
it.
said it, it's gonna be standard for
That's
either
right.
option. Yeah.
yes, thank you. So how do we go about approving this?
Okay, so I would.
Fred's gonna have a hard time like wording all this out for
Yeah,
us to approve.
So what I would advise you do, Mr. Chairman, is poll each of
Okay.
the commissioners to see if they have any additional comments or
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Give me a chance to answer them or
Okay,
for you guys to discuss that more.
Yep.
Then between the four of you, because it would be Laura, Greg, you,
Right.
Pat, and Danielle
Yep.
that would vote on this.
Yep.
You would have a motion that either maintains the order as it's written,
Right,
revise what you've discussed, which
Okay.
I'm inclined to think that's the way
right,
this will go,
Okay.
or that the order is withdrawn.
okay. Do I have to sit anybody or they're all seated?
I would say that, you should seat Danielle just to make sure the bases are covered. And you would be,
Whatever you want.
you would be seating her for, Commissioner Jordan.
Okay, so I would like to see Danielle for Commissioner Jordan. Okay, Laura, do you have anything to add to this? Any concerns or anything?
Oh, no, I don't.
Thank you. Greg?
I think everything we discussed and
Yeah.
David has is fine.
I'm covered.
You're covered. So I just want to check with you also, Dave. Is there anything that you feel is needed to assist you in this concern?
I think you guys have done a good job with
Okay.
what you've discussed. I think you're being very reasonable.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say you're being generous to Mr. Bjorken. I am hopeful that he does not take advantage of your generosity with the time that you've given him. And how thorough you have been. Or you are being with spelling out what you want from him.
Yep.
And how soon you want him to produce that.
Just to be clear with the timeline and everything, being generous is just because I've seen roadblocks come up without, however, in no way should that be taken that this is gonna get pushed out. These are set dates and they need to
Right,
be
that-
followed, and I, not to your point, I just want him to understand, because I'm assuming he's gonna watch this hearing or this meeting to understand that these are set dates, and, you know, we're being generous now, you know, to make sure that anything that can come up can be addressed. Okay, however, this is the one time we're being generous on these dates. This has to be corrected, and it has to be corrected in the timely fashion.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
So now, I need to make a motion that we will amend your, what's that called?
Order to correct.
Order to correct. You need me to list them all, or?
You should, yes.
Okay, yeah, great.
And I'll go through them with you. The first one is that you want him to immediately, you want an immediate cessation of any and all work.
Okay,
Unless it's determined by me that is a immediate public and or health safety issue.
do I have to repeat that, or we could go with what
You
you
just,
said?
you can just say that.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's-
we accept the way you want.
The second item would be is that you are requesting him to provide an update at your next regular meeting on September 25th
Yes,
as to whether or not he is going to revert the conditions as to reflect what they were when he first acquired the
as
property,
you had outlined, yes.
or submit an application to continue the improvements that he's made
Yes,
and make any further progress to them.
yes,
The
Separate
third item
condition.
would be is that he has to have an application for either course of action submitted to you on or before October 30th, 2023.
is that when the next meeting is, October 30th?
That's so you have a regular meeting in September 25th,
And then when's the next one?
October 23rd.
I would like to make it October 23rd then.
Yeah.
Because then we're not pushing it already into November's meeting, so let's do October 23rd instead of
Okay.
October 30th.
Okay, and then the fourth item would be that any violations of this revised order, could incur additional legal actions up to and including an injunction being filed with the Denver Superior Court.
Okay, and then the fifth one would, I don't know if it would include on the second one. In the next meeting, either way he's going. I would like to know, or we would like to know what soil scientist he has obtained to assist him in those two options.
Okay, so I would amend the second.
Okay,
vote
yes,
then.
because that shows he's working towards it.
Got it.
2 weeks is very time to make the phone call and hire somebody.
Okay, okay,
Is it difficult to get a scientist?
I don't know.
Okay.
And there are plenty of them that practice in our area, from my experience. There is one that appears before you more often than most. Whether or not Mr. Bjorken pursues that specific soil scientist, I don't know.
That's okay.
It's not in my place nor yours to make any
And
recommendation.
that's why I said,
Right,
you know, who he's hired. You've got 2 weeks to make a phone call, hire someone, and they may not have even gone out there yet.
right,
At least we know,
Right.
and they're welcome to come to that meeting as well, to say which, but as long as we have the name, of the person that was hired.
and you want that more as proof that he is
Yes.
following through the work.
Yes,
Not so much to critique or show predisposition towards
Yeah,
one soil
because-
scientist or another.
because I want to make sure that come the October 23rd meeting, doesn't turn into, oh, I just hired someone. No.
Right.
Then it goes into the whole
Got it.
injunction,
Yes.
there's timeline.
Right.
To that.
Yep.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure that it's reasonable to get a soil scientist hired in
Exactly.
2 weeks.
Yes, it
That
is.
I have not done.
Yep.
So I do know them.
Okay,
Raul had mentioned to restore any damage already done as well.
That would be part of the, one of the two, I don't know if that needs to be mentioned or not.
it should be, yeah,
Okay.
so. Let's
As a
go,
part of the
So-
remediation plan, we don't want him doing any more work right now, even if it's.
Right, so that would be including both the options. Including
right,
restoration to any. Damage that has been done.
right, so I would say that's mitigation.
Okay,
Uh,
thank you.
that's the word I would use.
Yep.
If
If you could add that into those
Yeah.
two options,
Sure.
both to include mitigation.
sure,
Okay, so we have still 4. Terms, thank you.
what was the fifth one?
There was a 5th one, but we're putting it on the second.
Oh, right, yes, that's right, okay, yes, there are 4,
Is that correct?
yes.
Yes,
Okay.
for.
She's good,
Someone else.
Okay,
Yes, we could.
so we have a motion in front of us to redraft the
Order to correct.
order to correct with the 4 stipulations
As discussed.
as discussed and reviewed.
Okay.
Okay,
There's a motion on the floor, we need a second.
Second.
Second,
more
Okay.
seconds? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna one by one. Laura, do you approve, deny, or abstain this motion?
second, I approve. I wasn't sure if you guys heard.
Yep, thank you. Great.
Yeah.
Yay, approve.
Approved.
Okay, so motion carries.
4-0.
So this now, this order gets,
So a revised order to correct will be issued via certified and regular mail tomorrow.
thank you. Okay,
And I will advise Mr. Durkin through whatever other means necessary. Cause it seems that regular mail and or certified mail aren't as
Right.
effective as I had hoped.
and that's the only letter has to go out, no other letters have to go to adjoining or,
No,
because it's
Not
not
at
a
this
hearing.
point, no.
Okay. Okay. All right, is there anything else pertaining to this address?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. All right, seeing no new business, that would have been before, I see nothing left on the agenda, make a motion that we adjourn the meeting for tonight.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, abstain,
Aye.
abstain,
Okay. Very good.
okay, thank you.